Now that the mysterious Clockwork Killer has finally been revealed, Thomas Wayne will be forced to go toe-to-toe with his greatest foe, his wife, the Joker. What'll happen next? Well, let's hop into the pages of Flashpoint Beyond issue number 5, the penultimate issue in this Geoff Johns miniseries, and find out what happens next together, shall we? Alrighty then, so this issue opens up with an absolutely massive information dump, so strap on in because we're going to be spending a while here. As we join the book, they finally answer the question, where exactly do all the modern-day Batman segments take place in relation to everything else that's going on in DC Comics? Well, as we discover, it all actually takes place after the events of Dark Crisis. Which, hey, spoilers for a story that's going on right now, everyone, but all the dead heroes came back and were totally fine. We see that Mr. Terrific of the JSA, the third smartest man in the world, is on a nighttime talk show with Bonnie Baxter of the Time Masters, sister to Corky Baxter and self-proclaimed smartest woman in the world, who have come together this night to explain everything that's been going on in the crises to try and assuage people's concerns, and also basically for this book to finally explain what the hell the deal with the divine continuum is. As Mr. Terrific goes on to explain, there's really only two types of crises, the ones that affect space and the ones that affect time. The hallmarks of a space crisis you should know pretty well by this point. The sky turns red, everything gets all screwy, and eventually the entire world gets rewritten. See the original Crisis on Infinite Earths, Dark Crisis, Metal and Death Metal for examples. Then there are the crises that affect time, your 0 hours, your original flashpoints. These we discover are a lot more insidious and a lot more harder to track because they involve hypertime, something that even Mr. Terrific himself admits that he is not an expert in. Hypertime has always been the purview of the Time Masters. In fact, they joke in this very issue, depending on how you cut it, they were actually responsible for the events of the original 0 hour, but I digress. But what does any of this have to do with Bruce Wayne Batman? Well, as we check on with him again, it seems that he comes to the home of Ra's al Ghul. Yes, Ra's is alive and well again following the events of Shadow War, don't ask how or why. Ra's, it seems, has something Batman wants, the ashes of his multiversal father, Thomas Wayne. Everyone assumed that he died fighting alongside Justice League Incarnate when Darkseid hit him with his Omega Beams, but we know that's not the case. In fact, as we discover, Ra's has also been looking into this whole time crisis thing, and it seems that he has a massive file detailing the events of another time crisis, Doomsday Clock, which of course would seek to prove that Thomas Wayne is not actually dead, he's just out there somewhere in hypertime, and now Bruce desperately wants to get him back, even if it means completely ripping a hole in the space-time continuum. And with that, we actually check back on in with Thomas Wayne in the Flashpoint timeline. He's rushing to Arkham Asylum to have himself a final showdown with Martha Wayne after discovering that she was actually the Clockwork Killer. You know, it's funny, all series long I've been talking about how Thomas Wayne is the worst detective ever and watching him trying to solve crimes is painful. Well, guess what? He fully admits in this issue that he is the worst detective ever, and that Martha's plan really only worked because she created dozens of different red herrings for him to get all hung up on. Also, that if Bruce was here as Batman, he probably would have had all of this solved after the first murder. But why is Martha back? Why is she the Clockwork Killer? Why did she kill all those heroes and villains capable of time travel? Well, that's kind of interesting, as she explains in an admittedly pretty creepy monologue. Isn't that the funny thing about jokes? They all require timing. The book also zeroes back in on an interesting thing too, that Dexter Dent has been taken captive by his mother, who has just become the new Flashpoint version of Two-Face. Thomas has had really self-centered blinders on ever since this series began, but it's his butler Oswald that says that he really should save this kid in the way that he couldn't save Bruce, especially because, and wait for it, turns out Harvey Dent's daughter didn't actually commit suicide. Gilda Dent actually killed her because she was already manifesting her Two-Face persona. Well, I guess that's one thing we can cross off Thomas Wayne's ever-growing list of sins. Batman ends up making the scene, and him and the Joker have themselves a fight all over Arkham Asylum. As Martha explained, she had actually survived their last meeting, floating downriver and eventually finding herself in the caves under Arkham Asylum. Convenient, I know, just go with it. It was while under there she had heard the rantings and ravings of Psycho Pirate, talking about how the Flashpoint universe wasn't real, how there's another world out there where Bruce lived and became Batman. Martha became obsessed with this other world and decided to make it her mission to try and fix the Flashpoint universe. She actually went on her own Bruce Wayne-style quest, where she learned from all these different time-traveling heroes and villains before eventually murdering them. In fact, she even looked up who the Joker was meant to be in this universe. Turns out he was a guy named Jack White. For some reason, the internet chose to lose their mind about the reveal in this story, even though it's it's a completely different universe than the main one, and it's a throwaway line with no real bearing on the story, but I know if I didn't mention it, people would lose their mind all over again, so there you go, I did it. Ultimately, it's revealed that Martha's real plan this whole time was to build herself a time machine so she could go back to that fateful night in Crime Alley and make it so that her and Thomas were killed and that Bruce lived. In doing so, freeing herself and everyone else from the horrors of Flashpoint and making this timeline the way that it was always meant to be. And I know what you're probably thinking, hey, her time machine sure looks a lot like a snow globe with that glass dome, huh? Well, yes, in fact, it's revealed in the Batman segment that that snow globe he took off the Time Masters contained a hyper timeline within it. Batman hoped that he could use it to finally save his father, but Rip Hunter and the Time Masters have other ideas. Rip shows up with a gun and basically says that Batman can go to therapy or destroy time as we know it. It's his choice. And so that was Flashpoint Beyond issue number 5, everybody, and I gotta say, this is a series that has won me over and lost me and won me over again, and this issue is definitely one of the winning me over ones. I'm happy that John's finally buckled down and explained this divine continuum theory and how it actually relates to everything that's going on in Dark Crisis and the rest of the universe. Say what you want about Johns, but he's always had a unique talent at explaining larger-than-life fictional metaphysical concepts in really simple, easy-to-digest ways. Well, simple and easy to digest for me, at least. I know a lot of people out there were still confused anyway. I'm glad that Thomas Wayne has finally woke up to the idea that he's been a big, dumb, violent idiot this entire series, and that he only has maybe one chance left to actually do something good. I had complained in the last issue when it was revealed that the ultimate villain was just Martha Wayne as the Joker all over again, but now that I actually better understand her motivations, I've kind of changed my mind on that. I like that her big goal is to try and undo Flashpoint. I do raise a bit of an eyebrow about main universe Batman trying so hard to save his father when you stop and remember that the last time he saw him was in the pages of Tom King's Batman book, wherein he was essentially the final boss and villain of that story. Why has Batman turned around on him so much? It's not like he knew of all the good stuff that he did over with Justice League Incarnate, or maybe he does because there's such a big time jump in between events. Overall, I think I'd feel comfortable giving this one an 8 out of 10. I actually like where the story is going, and I hope it can stick the landing, especially because we know this book is going to be used as a launch point for JSA and Stargirl and a bunch of other new Geoff Johns-centric projects.
Hey there everyone, it's your old pal Cave Jewel, and if you're seeing me right now, that means you watched to the end of the video, which I am very appreciative of. It really helps drive engagement and retention and all that other good YouTube stuff. So does liking and commenting. Wink wink. If you like my content too, you should check out my Patreon page. We just redid all the tiers, so there's a ton of great rewards. You can become a patron for as little as $1 a month, and well, it would just really help me out. It's never expected, but always appreciated. So until next time everyone, I've been Cape Joel, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.